What's up, guys? It's John Dominique, the Soul Proponent. Good morning. Today, I want to introduce a new narrative that I've come up with in my experience, and I think it's important. It's an important message that kind of goes against the grain of traditional Christianity, the literal interpretation of the story of Jesus. And this narrative that I'm talking about is the idea that the story of Jesus is a parable about the human soul, which is born pure of a virgin, miraculous, buried and rejected, yet lives forever. My proposition is that the story of Jesus is trying to tell us something about us. It's a story about the human soul. And the human soul is one with God. It is infinite and eternal. He who has seen me has seen the Father. The Father and the Son are one, together in the same. The soul is salvation, it is heaven, and it is God, all combined into one. That's my new narrative, in contrast to the old narrative of the Gospels and traditional Christianity. Jesus is more of a literal interpretation where a man dies, is resurrected, and flies into heaven, and then he performs all these miracles and all that. So the truth is what's in accordance with reality. And if we try to believe in the story of Jesus literally, we know that that's not in accordance with reality. So we know it's not truth. We can see this for ourselves, but really there's very little alternatives to the traditional version of Christianity that we've been taught, that we've been given. And it's like that for a reason, because embedded in the idea of traditional Christianity, what's embedded in there on an unconscious level is the fact that we can't challenge the literal interpretation. There's only one way to see it, my way or the highway. That idea that we can't challenge it is unconscious, and it comes from basically an ancient civilization, mostly like the Romans, and back in the days, in the ancient times. They're trying to unify an empire. They want everyone to believe the same thing. It would be ideal if we were all on the same page, if we all had the same beliefs, because that would kind of make things easier, quote unquote. And it's profitable for empire and civilization to thrive and to survive, to have everyone on the same page, to think the same way, to believe in it'd be one currency, one religion, one culture, one tradition. That's what we think would be ideal. So it's basically fear-based. It's a mode of survival, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm not here to say that it's wrong. I'm just here to propose an alternate viable interpretation, a new narrative. The old narrative doesn't work. We've tried it for years, and we can see in history, we can see how much of an issue it has caused and created. It's done some good, but ultimately we know it's not the truth. And the issue is that we don't think it can change. And that's part of the old narrative. The old narrative is that we can't challenge it. It has to be one way or another, my way or the highway. If we do challenge it, we're getting bulldozered, we're getting trampled, we're getting bullied, we're getting intimidated. And that's the way that system works. I'm here to offer the alternative. There's something better. If we don't have an idea that there's something better, if it's not offered, if it's not on the menu, then we have issues, and then we're stuck with the old narrative. And then we know that old narrative doesn't work. Again, just look in history, and we can see, for example, Galileo. Everyone thought, oh, the church is unchallengeable. They're never wrong. But if you look at the history, you can see that there's issues with that idea, and that we can't change it. We think that's only one way to believe in Jesus, and the interpretation of Jesus is literal. The church is unquestionable. It's an authority that can't be challenged. It's unrivaled, unmatched. That's an issue. So the old narrative takes away our right to believe and to figure it out for ourselves, to believe the interpretations that we think it is about. It's not, there's an injustice there. And that's kind of one of the issues with the old narrative. There's no justice. There's no sense of fairness. There's no sense of equality. There's no birthright that we have to discover the truth of ourselves. And the issue, the main and deeper issue in that is that there's no self-worth. That injustice of denying our ability, or denying our right to find out what we believe it means for ourselves, that's kind of a piggyback. It's kind of a trade-off and or an effect of lack of self-worth. So the traditional old narrative takes away, it doesn't have any idea of self-worth. It's not there. It's not on the menu. It's not a thing. And without self-worth, we think that we're not valuable. Our right to determine what we believe or what we think the Gospels are.
I didn't get that. Could you try again?
Sorry. Our right to determine what we think the Gospels mean is taken away from us, and we don't think it's important that our own ideas, that it's not important for us to develop our own ideas, our own thought patterns, because we don't have any self-worth. Where it's not important. What's important is that we uphold the traditional old narrative, and the new narrative gets trampled. There's no room, there's no possibility for something new and something better to emerge. That idea, the old narrative that there's only one way to see it, and that's my way or the highway, doesn't leave any room for any change or any growth or development, and we're stuck with it. Yeah. So that's it. That's a huge issue there. And without someone bringing this to light and just to make it a possibility to see what the alternatives could be, it tramples us. It takes away our rights. It takes away our freedoms. And we think it's okay. We think it becomes normal that our self-worth is buried, that our self-worth is not taken into consideration, not taken into account. That's not important. The priority is survival and profits and civilization, advancing society. Nothing wrong with that, again. But the individual rights are just as important as that. If we're not aware of that, it becomes an issue. So this old narrative, it doesn't do justice to us. There's no fairness in it. There's no equality. And we can look through history. We can see how detrimental it's been in society, and how it's hindered us from advancing. So this the one narrative idea that there's only one way to see things, again, it comes from the empire trying to unify. It comes from emperors trying to unify an empire. The church is not always right, and this idea that there's only one way to see it also disregards our self-worth. It disregards our right and our ability, or our inherent birthright to have the right to find out what we believe it means for ourselves. There's no discussion about self-worth. It's not on the menu. We don't know that our self-worth is unconditional and independent. What happens is we think our self-worth depends on believing in the way everybody else believes, to allow the survival of the group, to maintain the status quo, and to allow civilization to thrive for the good of the whole. And our own rights are trampled upon that. And you can see in Christianity, there's no justice, and there's no self-worth. There's no equality. There's no fairness in traditional Christianity. That old narrative has to go. There has to be something new there for us in order to grow and develop as a civilization, as a society, as a whole. It's not healthy to live without self-worth and to know our own value, thinking our value comes from our peer groups and living up to the peer pressure that is applied to us as we live our lives. It's not it. That's a cheap substitute. It doesn't do the job. True self-worth is unconditional. There's not anything that needs to happen for self-worth to be available to us. It's already there. It's inherent in our DNA, in our being, in our existence. all the slavery, all the injustices, all the racism, all the economic inequalities are coming from this lack of self-worth. People are trying to overcompensate for this lack of self-worth, and that's why it comes out all distorted. You've got greed, corporate greed, trying to overcompensate for not being able to feel good enough about themselves. You gotta have money, you gotta have something to offset this idea that we, or this feeling, this unconscious feeling that we don't have any value. So the system, we know there's something wrong with it. We know it doesn't work, but we've been trying as hard as we can because we don't know anything better. We think it's okay to pass this type of ignorance on to our children, and we can see on a global scale, on a cosmic scale, that this lack of self-worth is running rampant, right? It's decimating humanity. You can see in history that it's not been healthy. We think, but we don't know there's an alternative because the old narrative is in the way. It's displacing any idea, any possibility that there can be something new or something better, without offering something new or something better, without seeing that there is a possibility of something that can actually support us, support our society. And we just continue to go on with the old ways, and we think that's okay. It's been normalized that that all of the negative aspects and the negativity that's fueled by this old narrative, we think that's normal. We think it's okay. We pass it down to our children. I'm here to offer something different, a new narrative, because it's important for humanity. It's important for our self-worth. It's important for our well-being. It's important for our mental states. So yeah, we just need to be aware that there's the possibility of a new narrative. I'm just here to offer this. This is not something to challenge or to erase the old narrative. Some people need that old narrative because they need something to hold on to until they know something better. People are doing the best they can with what they know. So people hold on to the old narrative because they think that's the best thing. Well, I'm here to say that there's alternatives, that I'm here to offer a new narrative, that this story of Jesus is not meant to be taken literal, and that literal interpretation causes suffering. And we need to know that this actual story of Jesus is a parable about the human soul, which is born pure of a virgin, miraculous, buried and rejected, yet lives forever. This is new territory. It's going to make a lot of people uncomfortable. People don't want to change. They don't want to challenge the status quo because they like what's familiar. Well, if what's familiar is causing us more pain than it is bringing us good, then we need to start questioning it and start looking deeper into it and start seeing that maybe there's something better. And we need to allow that possibility that there's something better. You know, it takes a certain amount of humbleness and maturity to be able to swallow our pride and say, hey, maybe we're wrong. Maybe there is something better than what we've been offered. But we have to be willing to give it a chance. So the new narrative that I'm offering is that the story of Jesus is a parable about the human soul, which is born pure of a virgin, miraculous, buried and rejected, yet lives forever. Now, the beauty about it is it sounds good in theory, but we need to actually put it into practice and see what it's about. How is this new narrative? How do we implement this? How do we experience it? How does it inform our lives, and how do we live from it? That's what this spiritual awakening is about. That's what the path is about. Now, I'm not here to say this is going to happen in one sweep of the rug. This is a lifetime endeavor. We have to put in work to it and work towards it. And it's a practice. There's a higher meaning to the story of the traditional idea of Christianity. It's not a literal interpretation. So, I'm not here to dismantle the old ways. Sometimes some people need to hang on to this traditional idea until they're ready to let go. And but I'm here to just offer this idea and help myself and help other people understand, first of all, because that's the most important thing, to understand what this is about, and then to actually go and experience it. There's institutions, there's nonprofit corporations that are out there that can help us on the path to figuring out what the soul is all about and what the story of Jesus is all about and spiritual awakening and all of that. So I'm not here to offer that. I'm just here to offer an alternative so that people understand and that people know that there's something better out there. And I'm here to offer this new narrative that the story of Jesus is a parable about the human soul. This is critical for humankind because if we continue to go down the path we're going on now, we know it's not sustainable. We can see just by looking at what's going on in our world around us. It's not sustainable for us to continue down this path the way that it's been throughout history. It's getting worse. Things are snowballing out of control. It's spiraling where it seems like no one knows what to do. So we just need to be aware first of all, and that's what I'm trying to do with my message in this channel. And I just need you guys' help to help me help other people understand that there's a narrative, an alternative narrative that's possibly more true than the old narrative that we've been given. John Dominique, the Soul Proponent.